There's an adventure inside all of us. Some of us live for that adventure. Others let it take them someplace new. Your adventure begins here at Wind River Resort and Casino. Your adventure begins here at Wind River Resort and Casino.
All right, good morning, everyone. I apologize for getting in here a little late. I've had a few technical issues this morning. Everything's A-okay, just, a few things kind of just went a little bit awry, and I had to kind of take care of those issues before going live. But here we are live, and hopefully we make it through the show without having the issues I've been dealing with here. But I do have a backup plan, and it may be a little bit of a kink, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. All right, so let's start with another beautiful shot in Reading, right? We got our divine sky cam here. Looking at, if you look off at the distance, one of the things that if you look really closely in the very center of your screen, you might see just that little bit of the outline of Mount Shasta. Now, one of the reasons why we can't see it is because there still is a little bit of haze from the smoke from the fires that we do have in Oregon and in Washington. And as a result, you just can't really see what's going on here. We've got good morning coming in from Jackie in Trinidad, and she is saying, looking a bit foggy this morning on the coast, and I am not surprised. In fact, let's go ahead and take a look at what it looks like on the coast right now. We can take a look at the visibility. So Crescent City is down to about 1 mile. It was actually down to 1 mile in Eureka about an hour ago. Now it's up to about 7 miles. So we are actually seeing some improvement in a few areas. We take a look at what it looks like right now in Crescent City Harbor District, and you can see the overcast, foggy conditions that we do have in Crescent City Harbor District. And is that George? We haven't actually had a seagull on the roof for quite a while, so this is a nice little treat to see. That doesn't look like George to me. Looks like maybe a new seagull, but nonetheless, we are seeing those foggy conditions there. And I've been slacking, folks. I'll admit it. I haven't really been checking your photos that you've been putting in through the app, the Weather NorCal app. And there have actually been several. This is a really great one coming in from Tim Moore of the Buck Moon just a few days ago. Beautiful shot. You know, a lot of times you take a picture of the moon with your phone and it just looks kind of this blurry white ball, right? But you can actually see some of the details of the craters in the moon there. So beautiful shot coming in from Tim Moore. Thank you for sharing your photo, Tim. And if you want to share your photo like Tim and see it right here on Coffee with Krueger or even on the morning update, all you got to do is go to the free Weather NorCal app and you can send your photos from there. And before you know it, you just might see it right here on Coffee with Krueger. All right, let's get into your weather headlines. Your Krueger's Quickcast before we kind of get into that deeper dive and some of the fire outlooks as well. So temperature is still fairly mild, generally upper 60s. Some of the warmer spots are in the low 70s like Reading and even Chico. 50 in Bernie, 47 Alturas, and low 50s right now along the coast. Now for this morning, out the door, mainly sunny skies, a bit hazy, and we're seeing that. Still the mostly cloudy skies and fog along the coast, but I do think there will be some clearing for some of you through the afternoon. We've got Curtis Brown. He's checking in from just west of Red Bluff saying, good morning, smoke and haze to the east. Can't see Shasta from Red Bluff this morning. And yeah, so that's kind of the bummer with this haze and smoke is you can't typically see some of the beautiful landmarks that we have out here. So we are feeling the impacts. The good news is we're not really seeing that air quality drop a whole lot as a result, but we still have the heat advisories for basically the mountains surrounding the valley. All right, so let's take a look at the satellite image. High pressure is that dominant feature and will continue to be the dominant feature through the week. Now, here's what we've got with Futurecast. We're going to see some clearing, but I do expect that that fog is going to return later on this evening and tonight and probably have a harder time burning that fog off tomorrow afternoon. Now, if you have a swamp cooler, you actually may see the output of your cooler a little bit cooler than yesterday. And that's the reason being is temperatures aren't going to be quite as hot today. Humidity is going to be still fairly low, but we actually have a bit of a delta breeze kicking in here for today. Now, as I've talked about this before, the delta breeze has bigger impacts for our neighbors to the south, especially around Sacramento, which is closer to the source of that cooler marine air moving through the delta and then up the valley. So think about it as an ice cube. It's a full ice cube in Sacramento, and they see cooler temperatures as a result. By the time that ice cube works its way northward into the north end of the valley, it's melted and has very little to zero impacts on the north end of the valley, so it tends to be a lot warmer. So we're going to see that footprint where to the north end of the valley, it's hotter than the south end of the valley because, again, that delta breeze is having that minor impact on the North State, in particular for the valley. By the way, the delta breeze does not impact the mountains at all, and that's why it's going to be warmer for some of you in the mountains than it will be for parts of the valley. So, again, you can see that footprint, right? Redding a high of 104, but Willows a high of 97. Why? Again, because of that delta breeze. Willows is closer to the source of that cooler air, whereas Redding, not so much. Now you can see 80s, mainly 90s and triple digits for the mountains and in the upper 60s to low 70s for the coast. Now tonight, we're dropping down to the upper 60s, maybe some low 70s in the valley, 50s and 60s for the mountains, and mid to upper 50s for the coast tonight. Your 7-day outlook for the valley. Temperatures are going to stay above 100 degrees for Redding, most likely through Monday and even in Red Bluff. But Chico, you should drop below 100 by Monday, and not to mention Tuesday of next week as well. For the coast, mid to upper 60s. For the inland areas, temperatures also dropping by the end of the weekend and early next week, and that's also the case for Trinity County. And we're also going to notice the drop in the temperatures for the mountains as well. Low 90s for places like Mount Shasta City for Monday, Tuesday, as well as El Turris. And even in Susanville, you're down to the mid to upper 90s by Monday, Tuesday, but staying above 100 degrees until then. So taking a look at where most of the fires are, mainly east of the valley, right? But look it up to the north, a lot more fires. That's where most of the fires have been so far this season. So it's only a matter of time that we see a shift in the winds and we start getting impacted by some of the smoke as a result. But it's not necessarily the smoke from the fires to our north, it's the smoke from the fires to our south. As you can see, out in Plumas County, we are seeing some of that haze. And we're also seeing some of the haze in the valley from the fires to our south as a result. However, most of the haze that you're seeing to the north of that in most of the mountains, especially for Siskiyou, Modoc, Del Norte, Humboldt, and even Trinity County, that's mainly from the fires to our north. But you can see that kind of pushing northward into parts of the valley, and we'll continue to see some of that haze throughout the day and even into tonight as well, but conditions should improve. But overall, the air quality is not being is being impacted that much by this haze. Now, we take a look at our fire weather risk. That's the colors that's the color coding on your map. And so when we get into the yellows and oranges, which is where we typically are this time of the year, it's nothing unusual. That's just the elevated fire weather risk. The numbers on your screen, that's the humidity. That's generally in the single digits and low teens for most of the mountains and the valley. So the extremely dry conditions, the heat, and the plentiful dry fuels out there is going to really elevate that fire weather risk really over the next several days. And another kind of source that we look at here is showing that most of Northern California will be looking at high fire danger. And why is that? Essentially for 3 reasons. Temperatures, it'll be very hot. Humidity will be very low, and we've got the fuels big time. Very dry fuels out there. That alone can cause a fire to spread rapidly. The fuels alone can cause the fires to spread very rapidly. But if you factor in the winds, it's even faster. But even though the winds are not a part of this equation here, or at least a big part of the equation, we're still seeing those fires potentially spreading rapidly should they start. We need to prevent that from happening. And that's why we need to be really extremely cautious, especially over the weekend. But we can never let our guard down this time of the year. I have a great resource for you. It's a one-stop shop when it comes to the fires. All you got to do is go to weathernorcal.com, click on the fire danger section. Check it out. I think you'll find it very useful. All right. So let's take a look at what's going on with some of those cameras out there. By the way, we've got Jackie Dixon naming our new seagull that we've seen, and she's seeing the seagull is Fred. So maybe the new seagull we'll call him Fred. We've also got Lisa Strickland checking in this morning. She is saying, good morning, staying cool in the house. AC today. AC. Yeah, when it starts getting extremely hot like this, any one of you that may have that, because obviously a swamp cooler is going to use less energy, so that's a great way to go to cool your house down. However, when it starts getting too hot, it's harder to cool your house down. And so that's why people who tend to have that switch will go to AC during these extreme heat waves. But when it's like in the 90s, it's certainly a lot better. So good for you, Lisa. Glad that you have that backup, if you will. Now looking at some of the haze, having a hard time, can't even see, barely can see Mount Shasta off in the distance. Taking a look at Shasta Lake, we actually have some of the haze and smoke that you can see off in the distance there. And this camera is sponsored by Elwood Ranch. Thank you so much for your support. Kenny Elwood from Elwood Ranch. And Lake Shastina Golf Resort, also sponsored by Elwood Ranch. You can see some of the haze that we do have around the Mount Shasta area as well in Siskiyou County. There's a look at Soda Ridge. Look to the north. You can see the smoke in Oregon. Again, that's producing some of the haze that we are seeing out there this morning. Lassen Park, I don't see much in the way of haze there. You're mainly looking at the blue skies, although there may be some haze even working this way there. This is an old image. Looks like the camera may be down for Lake Oroville, so let's take you right to Highway 99 at Neal Road. You've got the mainly blue skies out there this morning. There, of course, is Crescent City Harbor District, and there is a look at Fred. Fred hanging out on top of the roof, the seagull. Otherwise, we do have, of course, the overcast skies there and fog, but we should see that burn off, I think, for the most part later this morning. Bald Hill West, no fog in Hoopa Valley, but off in the distance, you can see some of the haze there as well. This is looking out at Scott Valley, some of the haze off on the horizon too. So yeah, the haze is certainly going to be part of our story here. Buck Moon, this is coming in from Tim Moore from a few days ago. I want to thank Tim for sending in this shot. Beautiful shot of that buck moon, and looks like a bit of either a sunrise or sunset, most likely a sunrise. Share your photos with the free Weather NorCal app, just like Tim did, and you might see it right here on Coffee with Krueger. Well, Coffee with Krueger would not be possible with our sponsor, Wind River Resort and Casino.
It's time to kick back, forget about your trouble, and have a good time. Wind River Resort and Casino is proud to welcome Uncle Cracker back to the Event Center stage Friday, August 14th. Drift away with his signature laid-back blend of country, pop, and rock, spiked with a splash of hip-hop. Tickets for this feel-good summertime show start at just $25 plus fees. Smile as you enjoy over 2 decades of multi-platinum top charters. Reserve tickets today at windriver.com. Your adventure begins here. Wind River Resort and Casino.
Once again, I want to thank Wind River Resort and Casino for their support of Coffee with Krueger since day one and their support of Weather NorCal in general. Let's get right into your deep dive forecast for your Wednesday, August 5th. So, valley highs, kind of a marker for what the temperatures are going to be like. Valley highs, with the exception of the coast, obviously. Valley highs are going to be about 100 degrees or higher through Monday, for the most part. Then temperatures are going to drop below 100 degrees across the board in the valley through the rest of next week. Now, during this heat wave, I don't expect any record-breaking temperatures. And during this time frame, and really pretty normal, is that elevated fire weather risk because it's going to be extremely hot, or should I say exceptionally hot, and very dry as well. Heat advisory for different times all across the board in the higher elevations. Should expire later on this week. So we have low pressure to our north and west. We have high pressure down to our south and east, and that is what's keeping things fairly warm. But I just want to show you how dry it is. You can see that monsoonal moisture trying to work its way northward, but really not making it 100%. But the lighter blues and the browns, that's indicating the dry air that's in place, and it's not going to really go anywhere. So that bubble of heat, that dome of high pressure that you can see off to our east, you see how it's building northward for your Friday and Saturday? That's going to be the spike in our temperatures after today and tomorrow. That's for Friday and Saturday. Then it migrates back down to the south for Sunday, Monday of next week on an elongated ridge of high pressure. Then we see some cooler air and a trough of low pressure begin to slowly dig into Northern California for next week. That is what's going to allow our temperatures to drop back down still around normal or just below normal, or really in this case, just kind of looking at where we are with that 100-degree weather. So temperatures are going to just kind of level out today, tomorrow. For Redding, at least 104 degrees, a little over 100 degrees for Chico. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, another spike in the temperatures, right? Another mini heat wave, if you will. 106 to 107. Temperatures drop slightly on Monday, and then across the board in the valley, we should, for the most part, stay below 100 degrees through a majority of next week. Lake levels, we're continuing to be around historical average. And that's good. We want to be above 100%, but in this case, at least for Shasta Lake, 98%. Not bad. All right, so we look at the wave heights. Look at that. They're actually dropping as we take in the next 24 hours. So no small craft advisories. Taking a look at your marine forecast, south winds at about 5 to 10 knots. Waves from the northwest at 5 feet at 8 seconds. And from the southwest at 1 foot at 15 seconds. Patchy morning smoke and fog. That should all kind of dissipate through the morning, and especially this afternoon. Here's your neighborhood forecast, sponsored by Dignity Health and Grange Co-op. Hot across the board, with the exception, obviously, of the coast, that is. Upper 60s through Saturday for the coast, mid 60s by Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. For the inland areas, you're over 100 degrees at least through Saturday, mid to upper 90s by Sunday, Monday. For Siskiyou County, upper 90s, even around 100 degrees for today. For Modoc County, upper 90s, maybe some triple digits for some of the warmer spots. For the Eastern Mountains, you're about 100 degrees for Susanville, Janesville, Doyle, Greenville, Quincy. You get the idea. Upper 90s, about 100. 95 for Paradise, 92 degrees in Shingletown. For the Valley neighborhood forecast to the south, temperatures upper 90s to about 100 degrees. Yeah, some of you in the Valley may actually stay below 100. Chico, you're barely touching 100 degrees today. 103 Friday, Saturday, and then mid to upper 90s by Monday and Tuesday. North end of the valley, yeah, most likely over 100 degrees. And again, we talk about that delta breeze, right? Has a bigger impact for areas to the south, which are closer to that source of cooler air from the delta breeze. Temperatures 106 to 107 by Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so another spike in our temperatures at that point. But temperatures do start to drop again going into your Monday and for your Tuesday. All right. That is your forecast, folks. I hope you're staying cool out there. I know I am, because I'm here in Baja, Mexico. I can't complain too much. And it looks like just by the time I get back, which we're driving back this upcoming weekend, should be back home sometime this weekend. And just in time, I'll be able to dodge at least some of the biggest heat that we've seen so far as we drop back down to the 90s through most of next week. But I mean, 98, 99 certainly is a lot hotter than the 70s and even some low 80s that I've seen here. But that being said, it's muggy here, a lot more muggy than I'm used to. So it can feel a little warm, but I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining. Trust me, I know what you're dealing with here. All right, so I hope we all can make it through this heat wave and get through it all. We're going to take a look at what our national holidays are for today. Nothing terribly exciting that I did see as I looked at it a little bit earlier. Let's take a look. Today is the 5th, National Work Like a Dog Day. Well, that's no fun. That means you got to work hard. I don't want to work hard. Who wants to work hard? A National Underwear Day. Well, all right. Okay. Hopefully it's clean underwear. My goodness. Who comes up with this stuff? National Underwear Day? Come on. National Oyster Day. Now, that's a good one if you like oysters. I don't really do oysters a lot, and I never really did. But when I went to, it was the market, I think it's the Sunday market or it's the Saturday market in Arcata. And I was with my wife, and she said, you got to get these oysters. And I think they roast them or whatever. They were so good. So good. We had some of those local oysters. They were phenomenal. So National Oyster Day. Maybe go support out along the coast some of the local fishermen or fisherwomen, fisher people who bring in those oysters. Very cool. All right, so some fun stuff there. Well, that's going to do it for us today, folks. Let's leave you with some cameras. Let's leave you with a little bit of jazzy music. And we'll just hope you kind of cool off today. Hopefully that haze isn't too much of a problem for you. As I mentioned, that haze, some of that smoke, we may see some decreased values with that air quality, especially down to places like Plumas County, Eastern Butte County later on this evening and tonight and tomorrow. But overall, the air quality for the most part over Northern California shouldn't be that much of an issue. Well, that's going to do it for us for today. I hope you have a great Wednesday. That's what today is. In the meantime, have a great day, and we'll see you
Thank you.